Hello everybody, welcome back to Bartlett Arbor Supply. Today's video is going to be talking about the moving rope system, or the double rope technique as it was called for a while. Just going to talk about some things that I find to make it personally easy for myself, and a couple of possibly advanced tips and tricks to make your job in the canopy as easy as we can. One of the big things that I found made a big difference for me was the use of a pulley-based friction saver. For me, I prefer to use the Teufelberger pulley saver. It's a kind of a middle ground between the Petzl nausea and the Petzl eject to me. The reason I chose this over the nausea is for the ease of choking. While the nausea can be choked, it's just a little more straightforward and a little easier to retrieve with this. We also have a slightly higher weight rating with this compared to the nausea. The nausea is a great friction saver. I've used it. It was very smooth. I just wanted something that could choke down because I found myself finding unions or needing a tie-in that was maybe in between two unions. So I wanted something that choked down a little more straightforward and was a little easier to pull out. And for that reason, I selected the pulley saver. So just to highlight, today we're working with a basic open system. I have a hitch climber pulley. I'm climbing on a 4+1 wrap Catalone hitch. If you'd like to learn the hitch that a lot of us here on the channel climb on, we do have videos on how to tie that. I do want to touch on one of the cons of using the pulley saver. To me, it's not necessarily a con, but it is slightly inconvenient. The pulley saver, along with the eject and the Petzl nausea as well, all have to be installed in the canopy. They are not able to be installed from the ground remotely. They can be soft retrieved from the ground, but they cannot be set and installed from the canopy. Your basic ring-to-ring friction savers can, and they do offer a bit of an advantage, but the difference between a pulley-based friction saver and a ring-based friction saver is substantial in my mind and in my experience. Also, I prefer being able to look and inspect my tie-in point, especially my final tie-in point if I'm going to be doing a significant amount of work off of it. So to me, the trade-off of not being able to install this from the ground compared to being able to actually fully inspect my tie-in point outweighs the con there. One thing we are going to do today is I want to cover the use of just a basic foot ascender if you are going to be on a double or moving rope system. For long ascents like this one here, it does make it a little bit easier. You are going to have to kick twice as much. So because with a moving rope system, you're only going half the distance you pull, right? Compared to single line, where each leg pump is going to be what you get out of your rope. So pretty basic for the install, like normal. We'll go ahead and flip this gate open. Clicked in. This foot ascender in particular does have a lock, so I'll kick that down. And then as you can see, it just pulled that slack right through for me. So the only other thing we're going to do, just to make this system pretty simple, is I'll take the working end of my lanyard, run it over my shoulder, and click into this middle hole here on the hitch climber to work as a tending piece. And then we are able to ascend with a little less work compared to hunching the whole way. All right, so one of the most crucial points for success on any moving rope system or double rope system when we're working a tree is our tie-in point choice and our location. If we can get a high enough tie-in to work our side and reach out and do everything else, we won't be fighting ourselves and fighting the angle. So sometimes that extra 6 feet, 8 feet really does make a difference unless you want to struggle through it. Now, like I talked about on the ground, one of the benefits of the pulley saver is actually being able to inspect your tie-in point. So my initial tie-in point I wanted was this crotch right up here. Now if we go ahead and we look, we have either a peel out or a frost crack or some kind of old wound, and we've got a lot of sapsucker holes around it. While it may hold, it doesn't quite look right, but the benefit of the pulley saver or the eject is we can choke right down in the good healthy tissue where there's no open cavity or any sign of decay or anything like that. So instead of losing this, 3 or 4 foot chunk, I'm only gonna have to lose maybe 18 inches of it, probably right around in here. So I can maintain that height to keep that angle better, and I get the benefits of a pulley. So I'm gonna switch over just so you guys have a little better view. So for installing the pulley saver, at least in a choking configuration, it's pretty straightforward. Now, the pulley saver does come with a Prusik that has a steel thimble on it, as well as this Prusik with an attached pinto pulley. I chose to take the Prusik with the steel thimble off and go back to the original style that Teufelberger offered, where you just had a clip on the end for your tail. I choose to use a DMM accessory with a locking screw gate. That'll catch that yellow retrieval cone that comes with this, and just makes things a little easier, a little tighter, and I found it chokes down a little better. So for installation, we'll take our nice big eye, we'll come around, we're gonna pass the pinto and the Prusik through the hole, like so, and then we're gonna cinch this up nice and tight. We're gonna pass that whole thing through, just get it really good and tight. And we'll leave a little bit of a loop there. Now, one of the common complaints with the pulley saver is that it's easy to get stuck. Something that I've found, and I've kind of learned from others, is that if you look here on the Prusik that holds the pinto, it allows us to adjust. If you put this big blocky part so it's facing inward rather than facing outward, it buys you about 1.5 inches of space. Now that space makes it easier for us to retrieve it out because it's not just rope on rope or rope on tree. There's a little bit of a gap. So if I just pull this, it pops right out. So real quick, just to show you that a little better, if we keep it this way, it does keep some space. I can get a couple fingers behind it, and it really allows that to flow out a little better rather than pull against the bark or pull against the soft eye harder than necessary. Run this up. Right about there looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and cinch this up, like so. Rope installation's pretty easy. Make sure our lanyard's good and tight before you come off of your lifeline here. I'm going to move my system from my side Ds down to my middle ring. Good. Installation. In this case, I have a splice. Splice gun goes through, comes back down. All right, so we're choked off up here. We've installed our splice through. We've connected it back into our hitch climber system. Now, the most important part, without this, you're gonna have to do the climb of shame, and no one wants to do that. So, we take our accessory here, and we're gonna clip that just above our Prusik, and we'll screw that gate closed, and now we'll be ready to rip. So this does make it significantly less friction. You may find that your Prusik may be slipping compared to when you're just natural crotching. So I recommend kind of get a feel for it low and slow initially, but once you know what you can run, in my case I know that this epi cord with a 4+1 catalone. Works great and it does not slip or run on me. Be free to run it wherever you need. You guys that run zigzags or akimbos, especially you zigzag guys, if you think that zigzag's fast compared to the Prusik, you pull it through one of these pulley savers, whether it's the Teufelberger pulley saver, the Petzl Naja, or the Petzl Eject, you're going to be flying, especially with a nice 24-strand rope. Whether it be the Kuzen A-Trax, or my personal favorite to run with the zigzag is the Teufelberger Adrenaline. You throw that through here and you'll be flying through the canopy. So, last most important thing when installing any kind of friction saver or moving your lifeline right, we got to load test it. So, I'm going to loosen my lanyard up here, allow my weight to fully set into that. We're not going anywhere. Now we're ready to go to work. Establish our working position, and now you can see I can tend my slack with just one hand. Through a Prusik, if I'd use both hands, super fast, super smooth, nice micro adjustments. So if I wanted to lean out, I'm not fighting it, good and smooth. Less wear and tear on us, less wear and tear on the tree. That keeps us happy in the canopy. So one of my personal preferences and something I found made a big difference for me, I now run my forward Ds or my lower Ds, whatever you prefer to call them, about 95% of the time for my lanyard management and lanyard positioning. I find that it really works in unison with the bridge and my tie-in a lot stronger, and I can lean out better. I can kind of swing back and forth and really just suck in and just get a better overall working positioning for me. So that'd be something I would tell you guys to try. Instead of running them up here on the hips all the time and really kind of stressing that lower back and really putting that weight into there and maybe crushing your guts a little bit on some of these older tree motion saddles like this one, where you really get that death squeeze when you're trying to get tight, drop them down. It does make a pretty big difference. So another thing that I really prefer with my lanyards is either running a Pinto or a three-hole pulley, whether that be a hitch climber, the Omega Pacific Octavia, anything like that, that kind of mimics the same setup over here. And the reason I prefer that is for this right here. So with the Pintos, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to watch your orientation of your gait, because now this is going to come back through here like so, and now the gate is going to be opposing to the Prusik. But now I've got two kind of little climb lines which allow me to triangulate better and walk around. And the biggest thing I find this for is coming back on long limb walks where it's kind of funky, because I can shoot this all the way out and use my full 16 feet here, and I can get almost halfway back to the trunk without having to kind of do the balance game and do the limbo like this, and just kind of let it go, suck this up, throw our nice pulley. Look how easy that is with that pulley up there. Kind of walk your way back. Just a good use for me. One final tip for me about that lanyard. All right, so sometimes we got to get quite a ways away from our tie-in. If we look at my angle now, I'm definitely maxed out, and I need to do some of this work down below me and a little bit farther out. So instead of really stressing out my tie-in point that I currently have and stressing myself out, my muscles out, I'm going to go ahead and use a quick little redirect. Now this one's pretty minimal hardware. We have a DMM lock safe revolver. We have, I believe this is the 16-inch blue Weaver strap. This is life support rated. On this far end, we have a DMM Ultra O with a lock safe gate. And we have just a regular Pinto, not a Pinto rig, just a regular basic Pinto. This happens to be the Gen 1 model. The Gen 2 models are pretty sweet. So this is pretty simple, relatively low hardware. You don't necessarily have to have this revolver. You can just use an Ultra O as long as it's lock safe and life support rated. It's just a little smoother with the revolver with this built-in pulley. So for installation, I'm going to whip it around here. Now the biggest thing to pay attention to with these and setting them up is that the gates end up opposing and that they also end up pointing away from the bark. You don't want the gates on the bark because you can have accidental opening, and our carabiners are weakest on the gates. We want to load the spine of the carabiner. So I'll hang that there. Tighten that up. I'm going to take and introduce a little bit of slack into this system. So I'm just pulling some slack out. You're going to see me wobble a little bit. Got a little bit of wind going on here. So I'm going to open the revolver and I'm going to put my spliced eye, my terminating end of the line, into the revolver, just like so. Clips right in. Now, this other end, we're going to take our Prusik end, our working end, right? The side we like to play with all the time. And we're going to slip that into the Pinto. We're going to put it right onto the pulley. Now with that, I'll put this Ultra O back on. Okay. And then got to spin this gate around, and we'll be golden. Clip that back into the webbing sling, like so. Make sure that sling is off the gate, and we'll end up with something like this. Now, if I lean back into the system, you'll see some good separation. Another trick that I actually learned from Abden was that if I put some slack into this, come out. If on this second carabiner, if we hook that in to our spliced eye as well, and we reattach our Pinto like so, it tends to keep that webbing sling from riding up. So now with this tight, right, good and tight, I can loosen out my lanyard, weight test, and now I have a good working tie-in so I can get out a little bit better with just a basic redirect, because now I'll have enough angle to go out below, which I'll demonstrate in just a second. And there we go. I've still got good angle. My gates are not rubbing on the bark. And I was able to access out here and I can continue to work out. Just a nice, relatively low cost tool for the toolbox, and a quick, easy thought that doesn't take up much space on the saddle either. All right, so our work's completed. We've hit the ground. Now we're going to retrieve all of this. Now, this all will retrieve at once, even though I am through the pulley saver. Pretty simple. We're just going to act like we're retrieving just the pulley saver. So I'll take the carabiner out of my spliced eye. I will take the yellow retrieval cone. It's the small cone from DMM or Teufelberger. And then we're simply going to take the red thread on it and girth hitch it through the eye. And then at that point, we'll start pulling above our prusik to pull the line through. So, let's see what happens. All right, so we did our retrieval pull. We watched it come through, and as you can see, the yellow ball caught down here on the accessory carabiner. And our slings came out with it as well. So we had a nice clean pluck, and that will conclude our day. Hopefully you learned something, at least a trick or two. Like and subscribe as always, and we'll see you in the canopy.